daily maximum amount of tolls collected upon the same individual large truck using our shall not exceed $40. So I think that makes it pretty clear and brings home the $40 limit there. I'm not so sure, with all due respect, and I'm speaking through the president and through the chair, I'm not so sure whether what I said was offensive about the 9,600 cars or whether the language in the statute was offensive. If it is offensive, when I said it, I'm merely reading from page 6 of the statute. So if I offended anybody by saying 9,600 cars is equal to one tractor trailer, I was merely reciting the statute, and I apologize if I offended anyone. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. For the second time, and once again, Senator Pagliarini, I see that your light's on, but I'm going to go through everyone through the second time first. Senator Raptakis.
Thank you, Madam President. We probably know what the outcome is going to be this afternoon. We've seen the earlier votes. But as we move forward, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of issues and a lot of concerns I still have. I want to make sure that when this bill passes, that we're going to start repairing the roads and bridges that we need to repair and not look at starting new projects. Because I've heard that we're looking at starting new projects. Let's finish what we have first. Let's correct the bridges that are decaying and the roads that are decaying. Senator Pagliarini brought up a good point. That big mountain of salt that we see on Route 95 on the Thurbers Avenue curve, I'm not sure if I did not see the information, but I wanted to know also how much corrosion that had cost our roads. And you can see various bridges, concrete bridges, embankments, all falling apart. Bridges rusting. And you know what that is? Lack of maintenance. Lack of maintenance. So when we do pass this bill, those are going to be supporting it. I hope the next 10 years while we're driving down Route 95 or any of our state highways that we don't see any more decay or any more rusted bridges. I hope we also give the state police more revenue so they can start pulling over these overweighted trucks. We've got a rest area on Route 95 exit 3 unused. We have another rest area on 295 southbound that was supposed to be used for pulling over trucks and weighing them. I hope we reopen up those two venues and give the state police more money so they can start weighing and pulling over and finding these trucks. Another point that was brought up by Senator Nesselbush stated that 60% of these trucks are out of state. I hope that's not true, because if it's 60% of trucks out of state causing the damage, and those trucks bypass our state and use Route I-84 or use Route 395 and bypass the state of Rhode Island, we're never going to collect the revenue that we're anticipating. And lastly, Senator DePont had brought up the fact that Connecticut is on the verge of a $100 billion toll plan. He's right. But you know what's happening in Connecticut? The leaders in Connecticut, and you can read it right on the internet, it's right here, word for word, have forestalled a vote for 2016 and are pushing it out to 2018, allowing the voters of Connecticut to decide how much money is going to be put in a lockbox for these tolls. They're allowing the voters of Connecticut, the people of Connecticut, to vote on a toll plan. This is an important piece of legislation, and then you hear why we're getting a lot of emails. I've received a lot of emails against. And maybe it's the fact that Senator Lombardi mentioned earlier, it's 38 studios. Maybe it's the promise that we were going to phase out the tax on automobiles, and that didn't come true. But I hope as we move forward, the outcome today, this vote today, that all these promises are kept, that we're going to do what we said we were going to do. And thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Miller for the second time.
This will only take a moment. As Senator Raptakis said, you can read it right here on the internet. In order that we continue deliberating based on the facts, I just want to help Senator Morgan avoid a embarrassing PolitiFact. And I have the Mass DOT budget here. The latest year I could get was 2013. Their budget was, rather than $700 million, as she stated, $1.8 billion. And that was 2013, so I expect it's probably increased since then.
Thank you, Senator. As is tradition, Senator Pagliarini, we usually end with the floor manager and the sponsor. So for the third time, and it's usually with the consent of the chamber. However, if there's no objection, I would at this time allow you to do it third time, and Senator DePalma also has a light. So please, usually it's by a vote of the chamber. Is there any objection to a third time? No vote. That's. Is there any objection? If there's no objection, with the consent of the chamber, you shall be allowed to speak a third time.
Thank you, Madam President. And quickly, the one omission to my previous commentary. The state of Rhode Island has a permit process for overload vehicles and overweight vehicles. This bill does not address those. If our concern is really about heavy trucks causing damage on our vehicles and on Allens Avenue and other local roads, why does this bill not address the heaviest of the heaviest vehicles on the road? Again, an empty 18-wheeler is 30, 40,000 pounds, but you can buy a permit, and last year we only raised $392,000 in overloaded permits, I believe is the number, and like $1.2 million in overloaded permits. So why is that permit process not also part of this as a comprehensive outlook to protect our roads? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Chacon?
No. Thank you, Madam President. One of the comments that were made earlier was the fact that the money is going to DOT with no oversight. That was in some of the emails I know some of us received, and the concern was they don't trust us. Well, I must get this out because I know I sat on the Finance Committee for 10 years, and every year our able staff in fiscal and the chairman of finance did receive reports from the Department of Administration and the Department of Transportation on their spending. So people brought up 38 studios. I know a lot of this is being said that this is another 38 studios. I think we've learned from our mistakes. I think our fiscal staff on the Senate side, I think Steve's counterpart on the House side, and both chairs in finance will be very cognizant of the fact of where the money's going and oversee it to the best interest of the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman DuPont.
Thank you, Madam President. I was listening to everyone's testimony, and I think, Senator Pagliarini, you are correct. Senator Raptakis, you are correct. And any other member that got up and said that DOT has been less than functional is correct. DOT in previous administrations has been a disaster. However, we're talking about a new governor, a new administration, new leadership at a variety of levels at DOT. And so for the current administration to pay for the sins of the past, I'm not sure is entirely fair. I think that at the very least, what the administration and the new leadership at DOT deserves is a chance to show what they can do with the resources that they will have to be able to do it. And part of the challenge with the previous DOTs, and I remember former Director Lewis, every time he'd come before Finance, he had those beautifully pastel-colored bucket charts. And they did have a challenge in resources, but they were also not the most efficient and certainly not the most effective in the projects that they were responsible for. But with that being said, prior to even this discussion reaching the level of seriousness that it has and debate that it has, the new administration did begin to make reforms in DOT and have individuals that were not necessarily responsible prior in their day-to-day duties, they will now become responsible from start to finish for the projects that they're tasked with. And so I think at the very least, they deserve an opportunity to demonstrate what they're capable of. And at the end of the day, we are the legislative branch. We're not the executive branch, but we do have the ability to exercise oversight in our authority, and we've done that. We do that through the budget process. We do that through special committee hearings, and we'll certainly not be afraid to do that once this whole process gets up and running. And lastly, there is a public disclosure component of this. I mentioned it in one of the amendment that I proposed that we passed. It will require all of those reports and also a plan for salt mitigation and attacking that part of the problem to also be made public to the public, be made aware and public to us. And there are also consequences if the DOT does not effectively go forward with that plan. They will not be allowed to put out projects that are going to be bid and worked on. So I think there is a sufficient level of checks and balances here, but at the end of the day, I think they at least deserve an opportunity to do their job. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to digress just a little to the Vice Chair of Finance, Senator DePalma.
Madam President, members of the Senate, I appreciate if you can indulge me for just a few minutes. A couple of things I want to talk to. We talked earlier, just to correct some items that were mentioned, about the bond and what happens with the bond if the toll isn't there. Well, the bond is associated with Garvey. There is no bond associated with the toll as there was last year with the revenue bond. So that was an improvement that came through the various hearings. With regards to the setting of a toll on the bridge, well, we all know and we all love the Newport-Pell Bridge. Today that always has been set by a board of the Turnpike and Bridge Authority Board. And people are concerned that the toll will go up. The toll on that bridge went down for commuters. It was 91 cents and went down to 83 cents with the Easy Pass. As an engineer, I'm going to try and keep my comments to facts and data, and I'm going to keep my opinion out of the conversation. If I get to opinion, just raise your hand and I'll stop. Just kidding. No. I try and look at every bill and any bill that I put in from 6 different perspectives. Why, who, what, when, where, and how. I'm going to start from the why. Because if we agree on the why, which we all do, and I'm going to be very brief on the why, it then comes down to the rest of those 5 interrogatories that we look at to say how do we address. But from a why perspective, we are 50th out of 50. For me, there's 4 issues to seek to address this. It's safety, it's economics, it's fairness, and it's equity. First, from a safety perspective. And I have one to add. Senator Goodwin, great list that you had. I'd like to add one to it. Mianus River Bridge. I lived in Connecticut at the time. I moved to Rhode Island less than 2 months after it happened. July 28th, 1983. You can't see the picture. I'll have it here later. You can check for it online if you want. The southbound side of I-95, gone. 100 feet, completely gone. Tractor trailer over the bridge, over the road. Couple cars over the road. Several people died. And in fact, a story I was told when I was still lived in Connecticut, because I only moved a few months after that, there was somebody trying to wave somebody down. Stop, stop, stop. Somebody did something to him. I won't use the gesture that they gave him, but they gave them a gesture. And a few minutes later, they went over into the 75 feet down. We were fortunate. Only 3 people died. How many were injured? God forbid that happens in Rhode Island, and I'm never going to be one that's going to stand here and say, I didn't do this because of that potential issue that might manifest itself. I don't do this for a scare tactic perspective, but I'm not going to do it. I wouldn't have done it before, and I'm not going to do it now. It's going to be based on facts and data. So that's the first one with regards to safety. With regards to economics, from a business perspective, most businesses' number one priority, number one cost is what? People. People. The second cost typically is what they want to concern themselves with is stable and predictable taxes and fees. They know they're going to pay taxes and fees no matter where they go. They want to know that they're predictable. This General Assembly over the last several years has worked to make those predictable and deliberative. With regards, and the third one leads right to this, and I'm not doing this from this perspective, but my years of serving on a council and from being here and talking with various folks that testified before committees, a modern transportation infrastructure. That's what this seeks to bring to us. With regards to fairness and equity, I'll get to those in a minute. So I addressed the why. I think we need to agree on the why. You may disagree with my points of the why, but we know why we're doing it. 50 out of 50, time to act is now. With regards to how we got here, and you'll never hear me say, let me be honest with you. Because if you say that, you say, then you're lying to me every other time. But I'm going to say it today. Respectfully being honest with you, we as a state, both legislative branch and executive branch, have not been great stewards of our transportation infrastructure. And the money associated to that was supposed to go to that transportation infrastructure. In the past, gas tax has been redirected or reappropriated to the general fund. We'll talk about that change in a minute. Project management, as Chairman DePont indicated, from a DOT perspective, has been lacking at best. We'll talk about that and where we go from there. But I do want to put them out front and talk about this particular aspect of RIDOT. Because you talk about RIDOT and we paint it with a big 4-inch paintbrush. Well, we have folks that work in the highway personnel in the Portsmouth facility, Newport Division. We have folks in the Gloucester facility, Northwest Division. And I only picked out 3. Highway personnel in Senator Kettle, Senator Morgan's area, I believe. The Hope Valley facility, Washington South Division. Those folks are doing exemplary work with one hand tied behind their back to get that work done. They are to be commended for it. It's our responsibility to move this forward. The past is the past. So where do we go from here? So I'm moving along. I'm up to where? So let's bear with me. Here we go. And we have to continue to make a difference with where we go. As of 2009, all, and I mean all gas tax revenue goes to transportation. All goes to transportation resources. As of 2016, RIDOT gets 57%. RIPTA, the Public Transportation Authority, gets 32%. Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority gets 10%. And the underground storage tank, 1%. I've averaged those numbers. If you want the exact numbers, I'll give you to 2 or 3 decimal points later. Beginning in 2011, what did we do? And you heard Chairman talk about this earlier. We began to wean ourselves off the need to borrow $80 million to have a 80% match on the federal government level for the federal match. What we would do, borrow $80 million, pay back $120 million over 20 years. $40 million going to the bank. That was unconscionable, irresponsible. We've turned that corner. We're not going to see a bond that I'm aware of out to the voters to pay for the match to the federal money. Where's it coming from? Pay as you go. In 2014, we had the Special Legislative Commission to study the funding of the East Bay bridges. While that was the name and the moniker for the study and the commission, we said it needs to be much more than that. We're not here to address 1 bridge, 2 bridges, 3 bridges, 4 bridges. We need to look at our transportation infrastructure. And what did we do? We did just that. This General Assembly worked to achieve that. In that, as was talked about earlier, in that report, it was indicated by the 2 chairmen as a summary into the report that was about a $1 billion problem. $1 billion we needed additional. We addressed half of it. What does Roadworks do? The other half. In 2015, beginning in FY 2015, so I, like everyone else, I've got many calls, many emails. Those who allowed me to have a conversation with them, had a conversation with one young girl, younger than my oldest daughter, for 1 hour this past Monday night. I thanked her at least 5 times during the call. Why? The willingness to have a conversation. I did get a call from someone who sang to me. I won't say what he sang to me, but he sang to me on the phone. I wasn't there. But I have it on my answering machine to keep for the future. But what we did beginning in 2015 was all virtually all DMV fees, registration fees, license fees will go to the highway maintenance account over the course of 3 years. This year, 25% went, the current fiscal year. The next fiscal year will be 75%, FY17, and that's in the budget as proposed by the governor. FY18, 100%. What does that give us? About an additional $60 million annually once that's fully integrated. With regards to the gas tax, we begin a biannual analysis of the gas tax, and where does that money go? Into the transportation. With regards to vehicle inspection fees, we did raise vehicle inspection fees. Where does the extra money go? Into the highway maintenance account. From an Al Gore perspective, it's going into the lockbox. With Article 21 of that budget, we addressed about half of the problem. What does Roadworks seek to do? Address the other half. I'm up to the who, so I'm getting close to the end, so please indulge me. Who are we talking about? We're talking about RIDOT for a second with regards to the restructuring. If you go back and look at Article 15 from FY 2016 budget, change the organizational function of RIDOT by establishing a project management-based program and an asset management system. I'll talk about part of that at the very end. Project management-based functions have been around in the industry for some time. DOT is adopting them. It's the right thing to do moving forward for responsibility and accountability as we get there. With regards to equity and fairness, Senator Pagliarini, you're right on. SALT, et cetera, impacts our bridges. That categorically does. And if what I read was correct with regards to the Mianus River Bridge collapse in 1983, 33 years ago, not quite 33 years ago, that was caused by the drains not being cleared and the water getting to the joints and rusting out the joints. And the impact of the vehicles. So I brought it up at the hearing we had a few weeks ago. And if you're wondering, you can go back and read it. 329 years ago, Sir Isaac Newton, Newtonian physics, Newton's second law of physics, F equals ma. Hasn't changed in 329 years. Has not changed in 329 years. The GAO report, which I had last year and I have again this year. Some may say it's debunked. I've not seen it debunked. I will continue to look. And the language is right in here with regards to the impact. Had it highlighted from last year. Still in the same folder, I went back to it. A tractor trailer loaded at 80,000 pounds causes the same damage. Is equivalent to 9,600 automobiles. Maybe not mine, but maybe yours. Or put another way, 9,600 times more damage. So let's go to the University of Texas and let's say it's 1,000 times. Same order of magnitude. Put 3 zeros after it. On what? That's still 1,000 times or 9,000 times. I respect the GAO. From a DOD perspective, when the GAO speaks, people listen. With regards to bridge formula and weights, if you want to look at how you calculate a weight on a bridge, you can go to Federal Highway. I have a 1994 version and a 2006 version. A fully loaded tractor trailer, the cab is typically about 12,000 pounds on average. An unloaded trailer is about another 10,000. So an empty tractor trailer is about 22,000 pounds. If you look at the weight distribution across the axles, on a typical 18-wheeler, 17,000 pounds across every axle, 12,000 pounds at the cab. That's how you get your 80,000 pounds impact on the bridge. Does salt impact the bridge? Does the lack of maintenance impact the bridge? Categorically. What does the weight do? It exacerbates the impact on that bridge. Do cars do? Yes, they do. Just 1/9600th time less than what they do there. Is that fair for all of us? Is that fair for all of us that we pay the same amount that they do? Because the only payment, and I'll talk slightly about it, is in the gas tax. So a Milo Baron that I had to depart with a short time ago got about 20-something miles to the gallon. Let's say it got 20. A tractor trailer gets 5. So they're paying four times more than I am on that same gallon of gas. They're doing 9,600 times more damage. Still not fair. If we look at the truck tolls across New England and the Mid-Atlantic states, and this is in the briefing that we had at the Senate Finance Committee hearing, and it was shared with everybody, looking at a tractor trailer traveling Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, I'll call it Mass, and into Connecticut. How does that compare? The cost per mile in Maryland, $1.01 on average. Delaware, $1.67. New Jersey, $1.08. New York, make sure you're sitting down, $3.07. Massachusetts, cross-state, is about 17 cents. The Boston area, or the Boston extension, is about 37 cents. Rhode Island will be about 46 cents. Let's take Rhode Island out for a second. We all heard it before. We're not going to contradict it. All the goods that come to Rhode Island, we're paying for those maintenance of those roads and bridges in those states. Is that fair? I don't think so. I'm up to the what, so I'm just about done. So please, thank you for indulging me. I know. So we talked about general fund and the general fund references. And we heard the chairman talk about some of that earlier. I'm not going to reiterate that, but I'm going to talk about this. If we look at the upcoming budget, the Health and Human Service budget, general fund, which is in excess of $3.5 billion, $1.3 billion Health and Human Services. Out of that, Medicaid, $881 million goes to Medicaid. Education funding, general fund budget, $1.1 billion. Add those two together, I'm going to round those up to $2 billion out of the $3.5. General government's like $500 million, I think. Department of Corrections, everything else is in there. With regards to the tolls, and we talked about 60% from out of state, and the concern folks had with regards to, well, I'm concerned that's 60% from out of state. With regards to the truck count, the level 2 truck count that was done by DOT, scientifically done with measuring equipment. So we got some real numbers. They had estimates before. We got some real numbers. With regards to that, while contingency was taken out, diversion is still accounted for. The $45 million still accounts for 25% of the Class 8 and above trucks not coming through Rhode Island ever again, or portion, nowhere near what they did before. 25%. The number that they believe is really in the neighborhood of 10 to 12%. 25% of the trucks now will not come through Rhode Island. That's accounted for in the number. So what remains, and we heard several people talk about it, how do we address local businesses? I talked to one of the businessmen that sent us email. I sent him an email back. He was on travel. I don't know where he was. And we talked one night about 10:30. I said, give me a call. I'll be up after 10 till about midnight. He called at 10:30. We spoke about 20 minutes. He has some thoughts for how we can help local businesses. I said, please pass them along. When you get back, send them to the governor. Let's figure what we do. We've all gotten calls. I don't know how many. I try and respond to every email. I can't guarantee I do. Some people have been, when they sent back the information with regards to what we did in the budget. So let's talk about the budget piece that I didn't address. $60 million annually comes out of the budget for transportation when we get to FY 2019. We've already started that journey by FY 2019, I think it is. $60 million annually out of the budget, out of the general fund to transportation. Last year, out of the Medicaid Reinvention Group, and the budget from this year, we're in the budget right now, $70 million came out of Medicaid, out of the general fund, from Medicaid. We've cut the general fund budget by $130 million in those two areas. What are people concerned about? We've also funded education an additional $40 to $50 million. I have to go back and look at the current budget we have in front of us. That money's going with education to address the skills gap, to address what local businesses need. We've all gotten email. We've all gotten calls. We need to do what we need to do with regards to that and move forward from that. If the time to act is not now, I'll hold up the letter that from Governor N. Rendell from Pennsylvania, who I respect and hold in pretty high regard. He recommends this General Assembly pass this. And if you've looked at Governor Rendell, what he's done in Pennsylvania to try and shore up their transportation system, I hold him in high regard. Providence Journal editorial. What did they say? 3 words. Time to act. I'll say the time to act is now. Madam Chairman, Madam President, one last item before I finish. We talk about roadworks. This is roadworks. This is roadworks. This is roadworks. So we talk about roadworks in light of money, in light of DOT, in light of tolls on cars. There's not a toll on a car. The language is in there, an improvement from last year. This is roadworks. What does, well, hopefully we'll accomplish today. What does that do? What does roadworks do for us? It allows us to do projects sooner rather than later at a cheaper cost as opposed to more money. That's what roadworks does. Will the project still get done? Categorically. It'll take a longer time, and it'll cost more. Is that what we want? Madam President, I don't think so, and I will be voting in favor of this.
Thank you, Senator. Last light, Leader Ruggiero.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Senate. First, Madam President, I would like to preface my remarks by commending this body for the discussion that we had on this particular issue and the civility that everyone has shown to each other. And that's just a mark of the Senate and the way we conduct our business here. Today we're considering a very bold initiative to create a solution for one of the biggest challenges we're probably ever going to face here, and that's our corroding and infrastructure. The quality of our roads impacts the safety of Rhode Islanders, the cost of our consumers who try to maintain their vehicles, our quality of life, and our economy. In the Senate, we have reduced taxes, and we've worked to build skills of the workforce. We also looked at where the state ranks in areas that impact our business climate, and we have taken steps to address them and improve our rankings. But we still rank at the bottom in an area that matters most to our businesses, and that's our transportation infrastructure. The percentage of our structurally deficient bridges in Rhode Island is 21%, the worst in the nation, and almost 3 times the national average of 8%. This Tuesday, the business community met at a press conference, and Lori Wright of the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce described the abysmal conditions of our roads and bridges with the photographs that she had taken that many of us have seen in the past. Ms. White also cited the 2015 report by the Area Development magazine that called infrastructure quality the #1 factor in economic development. Senator DuPont, Chairman DuPont so aptly described the difference between this piece of legislation and the legislation that we passed last year. To cut the bonding in half. Our interest rates were reduced by 65%. To cut the term of the bonds from 30 to 15 years, we used Gavi funds rather than revenue bonds. The number of gantries was reduced from 17 to 14. The typical toll was reduced from $3.50 to $3, and the maximum cost to traverse the state one way was cut from $30 to $20. These, I believe, are significant changes that I feel will help us in repairing our bridges at a quicker time and reduce the amount of money. As was stated, $950 million will be saved by the state of Rhode Island. Additionally, the new legislation strengthens the prohibition against tolling passenger vehicles by requiring a voter referendum before such a step could be taken. The only vehicles that will be subject to tolling is Class 8 to 13 vehicles, which are the large tractor and trailer trucks. This bill is not about tolling cars, not now nor in the future. Many of the states utilize tolling to help fund their roads and bridges. I feel that we should have that opportunity because, as was stated earlier, most of these trucks, 60% of these trucks are from out of state, and all they do when they come through Rhode Island, they don't even stop and get a coffee. They just keep on going and wreck our roads. And as of lately, the past few years, you've seen the larger vehicles, and if you drive at night, late at night, you'll see these tandem trailers, which a tractor is hauling one trailer and also hauling another trailer behind them. Those do the vast majority of damage on the roads. We've heard about several competing proposals that have been made. And those proposals raise taxes on the average working people by taking steps to raise the diesel tax or the gas tax or divert funds away from other programs. This is a bold and creative plan that will bring Rhode Island bridges to 90% sufficiency within the next 10 years and will fund the 610 project in its entirety and provide more dollars for transportation alternatives, paving, bike paths, and increased maintenance capabilities. Roadworks will create thousands of jobs in the hard-hit construction industry while bringing our roads back to acceptable conditions. In addition, it will also assist those businesses it would also provide business opportunities for those businesses that service the construction industry who had also suffered from the downturn in the economy. I would like to recognize the efforts of our congressional delegation because they have fought tooth and nail to get additional funding to this state, and we are the recipients of $102 million in additional funding over the next 5 years. I want to recognize the efforts of Senator Jack Reed, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Congressman David Cicilline, and Congressman Jim Langevin. I think this is a significant addition to what we originally had gotten in the previous years because Congress has been kind of dysfunctional when it comes to the infrastructure bank and infrastructure funding. I also want to thank you, Madam President, and Speaker Mattiello, and Governor Raimondo, and our Finance Committee Chairman for the time and effort that you've put into this initiative. I know you've spent many hours meeting with the parties, and I think it shows what we can do once we cooperate and have a collective sense. I want to thank my colleagues who voted for Roadworks last year, and obviously what a difference a year makes, in demonstrating their commitment to dealing with the infrastructure problem that we have in the state. I hope you will once again consider supporting this initiative, as I believe it's the most cost-effective and equitable way to fund our infrastructure improvements. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Leader Ruggiero. Will the clerk please unlock the machine? Shall the Rhode Island Bridge Replacement, Reconstruction, and Maintenance Fund pass? Have all senators indicated their vote? Will the clerk please lock the machine? 25 in the affirmative, 12 in the negative, and the act passes. Madam Whip requests immediate transmittal. There being to the House of Representatives, there being no objections, so ordered. At this time, we will return on our calendar as we await the arrival from the House to immediate consideration and new business. Senator Elizabeth Crowley requests immediate consideration of a Senate resolution expressing condolences on the passing of Joseph C. Sadlier. Senator Crowley?
Thank you, Madam President. I move passage.
Senator Crowley moves passage, seconded by Leader Ruggiero. All those in favor, please rise. The resolution passes. Senator Doyle requests immediate consideration of a Senate resolution expressing condolences to the Mutter family on the passage of the Honorable John A. Mutter, Associate Justice of the Rhode Island Family Court. Senator Doyle moves passage, seconded by Senator Lombardi, Senator Lynch, Senator Pearson. All those in favor, please rise. The resolution passes. Leader Ruggiero requests immediate consideration of a Senate resolution proclaiming the week of March 6th through March 12th, 2016 to be Women in Construction Week in the state of Rhode Island. Senator Ruggiero.
Madam President, two of my favorite subjects are construction and women. If I could have that read, I would appreciate it very much, Madam President.
Will the clerk please read?
Senate resolution proclaiming the week of March 6th through the 12th, 2016 to be Women in Construction Week in the state of Rhode Island. Whereas the National Association of Women in Construction has distinguished itself for 55 years as the voice of women in construction in Rhode Island. And whereas the work done by the NIWIC Rhode Island Chapter 52 has benefited Rhode Island through community development and education programs. And whereas the National Association of Women in Construction, Rhode Island Chapter 52, has unceasingly promoted the employment and advance of women in the construction industry, and whereas the construction community represented by the NAWIC Rhode Island Chapter 52 has been a driving force in fostering community development through renovation and beautification projects, promotion of skilled trade careers, and a positive vision of the future. And whereas the NIWIC Rhode Island Chapter 52 has sought to achieve successful results for Rhode Island and surrounding areas in a cooperative spirit with other organizations. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this Senate of the State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations hereby proclaims the week of March 6th through the 12th, 2016 as Women in Construction Week, and moreover recognizes the National Association of Women in Construction, Rhode Island Chapter 52, and its many dedicated volunteers for its steadfast efforts on behalf and in support of women in construction. We furthermore urge and encourage the citizens of the state to congratulate the organization on its many fine accomplishments. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be and she is hereby authorized and directed to transmit a duly certified copy of this resolution to Carol O'Donnell, past director, NAWIC Rhode Island Chapter 52.
Thank you. Leader Ruggiero.
Thank you, Madam President. I move passage.
Leader Ruggiero moves passage, seconded by Senator Goodwin, Senator Lynch-Prada, Senator Sosnowski, Senator Crowley, Senator Gallo, Senator Morgan, Senator Coyne, and yes, Senator Golden. All right, the rest of you guys too. And Senator Goodwin, I think I started with you. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The resolution proclaiming the week of March 6th to the 12th, Women in Construction Week, passes. At this time, the next order of business will be communications. We will revert to communications. We have received correspondence from Senator Frank Lombardo. Unfortunately, he will be unable to attend session today. Kindly record in the journal. The next item of business at this time, are there any announcements or introductions as we await one last item of business? Announcements and introductions while we are waiting. There are no announcements at this time. At this time, I believe, Madam Whip, is the House bill here?
No, Madam President, not yet. We're waiting its arrival.
It has just arrived. It came through the side door.
Thank you. It should come through the front door.
At this time, I would ask that all members take their seats once again. There is House Bill 7409, Substitute A, as amended. There being no objection, there's a request for immediate consideration. That being said, the matter is now before us. Chairman DuPont.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the House version of the bill that we just passed. I move passage.
Senator DuPont moves passage, seconded by Senator Lombardi, Senator DePalma, Senator Golden, Senator Ruggiero, Senator McCaffrey. Is there any discussion? There being none, will the clerk please unlock the machine? Clerk, please unlock the machine. Will the clerk please lock the machine? Oh, I forgot to vote. We are missing, where's Senator Crowley? No, we need, is she still here? Okay, will the clerk please lock the machine? 24 in the affirmative, 11 in the negative, and the stand at ease. The Senate will reconvene. Senator Crowley is recognized at this time. Senator Crowley, do you have a request?
Yes, Madam President. I would like to be voted in the affirmative on the last piece of legislation.
I know you had left the chamber while the chamber was at ease. If there are no objections to Senator Crowley recording her vote, it will not change the outcome. Are there any objections? There being none, she is recorded in the affirmative. Senator Satchel?
Thank you, Madam President. May I be recorded in the negative on the last item, please?
There being no objection, so ordered. At this time, is there any objection to transmitting adopted resolutions to the Honorable Secretary of State? All matters passed by the Senate to the Honorable House of Representatives, and all matters passed in concurrence to Her Excellency the Governor. Hearing none, so ordered. The desk is now clear of business. Madam Whip, motion.
Thank you, Madam President. If there's no further business to come before the Senate, before we adjourn, I would like to remind our members, and I don't think that they need any reminding, that next week we are on legislative recess. No, Jamie Doyle, do not come in. We will not be here. And so, Madam President, we wish all of our members a happy and safe vacation, and I encourage the members to continue to get their bills in if you are here in town during this vacation week. And Madam President, if there's no further business to come before the Senate, I move that the Senate adjourn.
Goodwin moves the Senate adjourn, seconded by Senator Ruggiero. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
We'll redo it.
Senate stands adjourned.